Hey guys, how's it going? It's Etanyos here. Welcome to this NHL 25 tutorial on how to scout in franchise mode. This video is going to help you get 200 plus revealed players at every single draft throughout your franchise mode. And a bunch of you guys loved this video last year, but said that it was a very long video, so we're going to try to shorten this down. Make sure to get your pen and paper out and take notes on this because we are going to be going through it extremely quickly compared to the last video. And also, if this video helps you out, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss when tutorials and helpful videos like this come up. Let's get into it. So the first step to setting up your franchise mode is to set up your save properly. So guys, in setting up your save, we're going to go with a team that is typically known for not having good scouting for the most part outside of the top end of the draft. I highly recommend that you actually play with owner mode on. This will allow you a little bit more flexibility with your scouts. Besides that, salary cap is staying on. I recommend turning Fog of War off just because it makes it a lot trickier to do this properly, but if you prefer Fog of War on, then go for it. Totally up to you still on that one. Other than that, if you don't like player morale, sure, leave it off, but then you can't get 99 rated players eventually. Other rules and settings you're going to want to keep an eye on that are just going to make things a little bit easier for this actual scouting tutorial is going to be, well, trade difficulty might have an effect on it, but really there's not going to be too much. This is the main setting you want to pay attention to, so you can see on the screen exactly what these settings mean. So we are going to turn off auto scouting. You don't want auto scouting. Technically, you could leave pro scouting on with this method, but you're not going to have any pro scouts, so it won't really matter anyways. And make sure you have auto staff management off as well. In advanced settings, the only things that are actually going to affect you that are outside of my preferred settings are draft class quality and generated prospect quality. Just for the fun of it, we are going to crank these up, and then we'll do another example in what will be season 3 of this video where we do this on low and you'll see the drastic difference in quality. So we'll start things off going medium for the first year because the first year is always the roughest year for actually setting things up here. Make sure you turn morale meetings off because those are super, super annoying as well. And without any further ado besides injuries really, let's get into the save. So guys, now that you're in the save, you're going to want to go down to your assign scout page in the quick links. This is going to be the main screen we are using throughout this video. Now, the higher overall your scout is, the better they are going to be at scouting, and the higher their region efficiency is, the more players they are going to be able to scout in specific regions or in that specific region. The next thing you're going to want to do, you can see the Edmonton Oilers have a ton of D-rated staff. This is really bad. You probably want C-rated staff minimum, so what we're going to do is just go through and fire off like 90+% of Edmonton's coaching staff here. We're only going to keep the scouts that are C-rated plus. The rest of these guys are going to find new jobs if they're lucky, because really this is actually accurate to Edmonton's coaching staff, but we're trying to turn that around in this video, obviously. So even the C- scout there is gone. So as you can see, we're down to just 5 scouts. This is pretty sad, but we are going to be hiring a full 20, and I will show you how you want to break down your regions based on which scouts scout where. The next thing I'm going to show you guys is how to relocate a scout. This is super easy. As you can see, Matty Rask here is a better scout in technically the Allsvenskan and the SHL than Liga. So what we're going to do is we're going to, oh, that's Dimitrov. I don't know why that switched on me, but we're going to go and relocate Rask to the SHL. So you hit Y on the scout, or it would be triangle for PlayStation. Then we're going to go up to the Nordic region because that is where the Allsvenskan, Liga, and SHL are. And then you're just going to relocate by pressing there, going confirm, spend that money, whatever it is. And now you have a slightly more efficient scout in the SHL. The next step is going to be hiring scouts. You need to hire what I'm going to put on screen right now. Feel free to pause the video on this section, but this is going to be kind of interchangeable year to year with the OHL or CHL scouts. You want 3 scouts in one of those 3 CHL leagues, and then 2 in all the others, and then 1 of each of the scouts in these US leagues, the DEL and LA Extraliga, so pretty much all of Europe, and then Russia, the SHL Liga, and then the other CHL leagues, as well as the USA Central. You are going to want to have 2 scouts in each one of those leagues. Honestly, guys, during this step, I even get a pen and paper out, and I keep track of each scout in each region and where they are going. So by keeping track of your players with a pen and paper or a spreadsheet or something along those lines, it's going to also make it easier for you to assign these players correctly once you've actually hired them. So even though this scout is an A+ in the DEL, we're not going to hire him because I already have an A+ DEL scout. I don't recommend you putting any scouts in the Ice League in Europe or the Allsvenskan in the Nordic regions. Those just simply don't need to be scouted. There's not enough players in those regions. Same with the rest of the world too. Don't put scouts in those regions. A lot of the time you'll see Nordic scouts that actually scout the Russian region better than all of the Nordic regions. So sometimes it just makes sense to hire a scout for Russia from that area. This is also vice versa too, where again, a scout that is supposedly a Russian scout actually works better in the Nordic region, so we're going to hire Nikolishin for what will be, I guess, Liga, because we don't have any scouts hired there just yet. Okay, so hopefully at this point, now that we're advancing a couple days, you guys should have written down all of your scouts in their specific regions. Make sure to keep this handy because you'll see scouts start popping up here with accepting the contracts. There's going to be a ton of them. It's usually going to take about 2 or 3 days for this to actually start kicking in. And while this works and while this is nice, at the same time, you're going to have to be kind of careful here. Just with it is, you don't want to take too many days for scouts to get moved around and end up in the right spot. So as soon as you've gone past 1 day, relocate as many scouts as you can. As you can see, we hired another 6 scouts on just like that. But I am going to go through and just relocate a few of these guys. Now that we have our scouting staff completely set up, we're going to actually get into the method for scouting 200 full bar players by the end of the season. There's a few nuances you have to pay attention to for this, plus the dates do vary a little bit from first season to second season, but let's get started. So this is really the trickiest part of it. It's actually not that tricky. It's more just spammy and tedious, but if you do it every season, if you commit to actually going through this spammy little process, it's going to get you a ton of extra prospects throughout the years. So let's get to it. All you're going to do now is you're going to press A, or I guess would be X on PlayStation. You're going to go over to Scout Specific Prospects, and then you are going to see that there are a bunch of options here. So Bryland's obviously going to be the top prospect this year. But what you're going to do is you can see there are 5 different options here between playstyle, strength and weakness, skill assessment, character assessment, and potential and comparison. The first step of this process is actually scouting in this exact order from left to right. So you're going to do the playstyle first. And what we're going to do is we are going to aim for our scout to finish up his scouting date by September 30th or October 1st, somewhere right in that range. As you can see, we didn't get a ton of prospects done in year 1. I'll do the year 2 comparison here once we've actually gone through the whole process, or I'll play it side by side so you guys can see year by year by year how it changes. But year 1, we only get 10 scouts or 10 players scouted with that first assessment. We'll go down, repeat the process, rinse and repeat, same thing, but you can go a nice little trick here that you have in case you forget which player you ended on. Like let's say I went, oh, I thought I ended on Semenov and I don't know. You can just press down right like R3 or your right joystick, and it'll say up in the top corner if they are currently being scouted by anybody. So as you can see, Kavasha is being scouted by Sergei Dmitriev. Semenov is not being scouted by anybody, so that's where we started off, and then you're going to do this spammy little process again, go down, and yeah, we don't get a whole lot of players scouted. There's only 8 players on that scouting report, so not amazing. Obviously, we'd like to be scouting right up to the 200 plus range. Maybe it makes sense this year to actually go and hire a 3rd Russian scout because there seems to be so many Russian prospects. But we'll see how the rest of our scouting lineup actually shakes up here with the playstyle. Honestly, the playstyle report is probably the least important out of all of these. As you can see, I went way past our deadline there. So again, only 8 players scouted. This is the problem with C-rated scouts, is that they are not very efficient. So once we get into further seasons, you guys will see just how big of a difference having better scouts actually makes. It usually takes 2 or 3 seasons for you to really get a solid scouting team together. This right now is not a very solid scouting team, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. So we'll probably be pretty skimpy on the USA scouts USA prospects this year based on how many of them there are. But now that we're done step 1, you can see in the top right corner of your screen right now the estimated date that the scout returns. And what is actually being scouted, which players are actually being scouted. There's sometimes a lot of them. You can see there is actually a scroll bar there for certain scouts, but this is step 1. We're going up to that September 30th date about. Okay, so step 2 is now strength and weakness. This is very easy to scout as well, and the date or approximate date we're going up to is November 11th. As you can see there, that went pretty much perfectly to it there with Filatov. Okay, so now you guys can see we're done the second round of scouting. Every single date for the scout is right around November 11th, within a day or two, and not going past November 11th. Alright guys, so now that the skill assessment scouting is done, as you can see for the most part, besides this 1/3 USA West scout, everybody else is going up to within a couple days of January 25th. So we'll go up to the 25th and continue on from there. January, we can finish up by doing a full potential and comparison scouting, and this one is going to take us all the way till May 15th, approximately. Sometimes the dates don't quite line up, but they're pretty close usually. So the reason we skip over character assessment is simply it's not really going to matter that much. It's not like this game is built solely off of character and chemistry and how your certain players fit with other players. Like, that's not the initial driving point of this game. You just don't really need to do character assessments that often, so I highly recommend avoiding them and just doing as much potential and comparison as you possibly can. Alright guys, so now that we're done that first round of potential and comparison, you can see we're going all the way up to May 15th, besides one of those USA scouts, because we just had too many players scouted in there. Now we can continue rolling on in the calendar and get to that final clean-up scouting report. So guys, now we're at the final scouting date of that entire chart that I showed you before. We are at May 15th, and now is the time to go and actually take a look at your draft class for the first time. I recommend not even looking at the draft class up until this date. As you can see, we missed one guy there in the Ice League. Again, that's a very uncommon occurrence that a player actually ends up there. So yeah, nothing to really worry about there that we didn't get one guy scouted. Is he going to be elite? Possibly, just because he's that high up in the draft. But as you can see, we are getting pretty good scouting reports on a lot of these players, but we're also going to be keeping in mind as we look through here, which players are actually good, which players might we pursue as, you know, a first-round pick. Maybe that Jack Iliakis guy, even though the Oilers don't have a first-round pick, but he looks really great. Besides that, maybe McElroy's good, maybe, like, there's a lot of top 4 players in here. Top 4 is great, but it's more the elites that we're looking for and not necessarily guys like Vitaly Denisov. So what you can do is you can sort here. If you guys don't know how to sort by now, it's just clicking down. You can see it right at the bottom of the screen, actually, so I don't even need to explain that. But there are some players in here. Jakub Frolov, he looks good. Only thing he's missing is a playstyle, so maybe we'll try to remember to do that. Besides that, Morales is going to be a elite defenseman, so keep an eye on him, and maybe this Sergei Dmitriev guy looks good, so keep an eye on him too. After that, there is at least one low elite for sure in this draft, in Kelvin Persinger, or Persinger, however you say his name. Again, Iliakis looks good, and there's a couple other guys, but besides that, that is what we're going to keep in mind. We're going to keep those guys pinned, but we're not actually going to scout them through here. Instead, we're going to go back to assign scouts. So now that we've had that, you know, first kind of look, so we'll go back to, again, assign scouts and then sort. Go to, let's say, Russia, right? We had Dmitriev. We wanted to actually see his, or not Dmitriev, Frolov. We wanted to actually see what his play style was before we hit the draft. Probably going to be a sniper based on the B- shooting. But we can scout his playstyle again. Again, you can scout literally any player that you want here at this point. I highly recommend only doing potential and comparison, really, because I don't feel that I don't think that you need to do anything other than that for the most part. Of course, you'll have certain players there like Ivanov and Gonchar that don't have a full potential scouting bar on them yet, so you can kind of keep track of those guys in your head. So, like, I would mark Filatov as one of those guys. Then I would definitely do Dmitriev. But you're going up to just before the draft, so June 22nd is the draft. So if you can get up to a scouting date before then, great. If you can't, with all the players you have, then again, that's maybe where a different or an extra scout in the same region comes in. But this is the kind of final step before we actually hit the draft class. And then, of course, we will do it all over again to show you guys a better look of how this looks with a better scouting crew. Another thing I did just want to point out to you guys quickly is that over the span of one season, our B-rated scout here in Irwin actually grew from a B to an A rating on his region efficiency in the WHL. So something really cool to take note of there. All right, guys, so now that we're done that round of scouting, we're going to sim pretty much right up to the draft, and then we'll take another look at how the draft class looks then. So guys, we are just a day or two away from the draft here now, so we can actually go and take a peek at the actual draft class. And looking at it, there's probably going to be a few changes from what we saw last. First things first being that Bedard is definitely a medium elite player. Besides that, Frolov, definitely a sniper, so we will be drafting him at some point. Iliakis would be nice to trade up for because he looks like a really, really good right shot. Probably either defensive or 2-way D, probably defensive, but yeah, would be a guy worth trading for. On the left side, Purge looks good, and then obviously Persinger looks really good. Besides that, not a lot of other players actually came out with proper potential. I did notice this Vienanen guy had NHL or NHL ready potential with his ETA. And then besides that, you know, Denisov, there was one guy in here that I thought had a 2-year ETA, but I might be wrong. Obviously, Kotiari looks very good. Brody McConnell-Barker probably isn't going to be that good. I don't know how they have Matthew Schaefer as a medium 4. That's absolutely insane with EA's base roster, but whatever. Besides that, sometimes you can find some decent like top 9 kind of players a little bit later on here if you're, you know, paying attention. So like Cole Temple makes sense. Brady Martin probably wouldn't be a bad pick. So you never know. Those guys can turn out sometimes. So never hurts to maybe pick them up if you have the picks for it. As the Edmonton Oilers, we probably don't have the picks for it, but you never know. So we'll see what we can pull at the draft, and I'll show you guys kind of how our draft plays out here. But yeah, we definitely don't have a lot of picks. So you do have to be somewhat savvy at trading to actually be a good drafter as well, because you got to get your picks into the right spots. Obviously, we traded away quite a few different prospects and pieces. But it ended us up with Iliakis and Purge and a bunch of cap space. And honestly, Frolov, Morales, even Dimitriev, those guys all have NHL futures, so a great first draft. All right, so as you guys can see, we don't have any scouts expired yet, but we will probably be expiring some of those guys intentionally here, so. Alright guys, so after year 2, this is what a more fully detailed scouting report looks like. Obviously it's not perfect, but I mean, hey, 2 franchise players at the top of the draft is pretty crazy. Unfortunately, we are not going to be anywhere near that with our pick. I ended up with Edmonton actually not making the playoffs year 2, which is kind of crazy in my mind, but as you can see, certain guys like Thorburn there already making that elite potential look real good. I'm sure there's quite a few more. We just got to look a little further. Something I did forget to do was actually bump up the draft class quality, so there wasn't much of a change quality difference year to year. But as you can see, there are still players like, you know, you get a guy like Gagliardi way back there. Some of these players aren't scouted perfectly because I didn't have very efficient scouts in the region. Again, that's the downside of not having the most amazing scouts. But then you find guys like, you know, Howard Calder at pick 104, Raymond Pera at pick, you know, he's a 2-year ETA, geez, at pick 108. So, you know, players like that, that's where this type of scouting is going to come in handy. Obviously, not perfect here, but, you know, pretty darn good scouting report still. Nothing absolutely amazing or outstanding. Of course, you can sort by potential too, which makes this a lot easier to actually go out and pick out these players that we're looking at. And yeah, you can see only 4 low elites there for sure, but a lot of other top 6 type players, and you know, maybe some of them that are not actually that bad as far as where they end up in the draft. Chuck Harvey looks pretty good, you know, players like that. So guys, we're here in season number 2, the off season of season number 2, and as you can see, there are at least 3 A-rated scouts and at least half a dozen A- rated scouts. These are the scouts you are actually going to want to go for. and make sure that you sign as many of these scouts as possible, obviously fitting them to your actual scouting staff still, but by doing this, we will compare and contrast the difference from Season 1, Season 2, and then obviously Season 3 with how well the scouting reports actually come out accuracy-wise once you upgrade your staff. And like even all of these B scouts are better than 99% of my current staff here. So yeah, it's going to make a big difference by signing all these guys. And just destroy the staff chemistry. This is going to be hilarious. So yeah, literally all of these scouts are out. This is unfortunately what you have to do. It's, you know, don't be loyal, but at the same time, make sure that you are improving your staff year after year, right? Like if we don't do this, you're never going to have, not perfect draft classes, but you're never going to have very, very well scouted draft classes. So yeah, just fired off literally the entire staff besides 3 scouts. So that'll be fun. And yeah, once they sign, I'll show you guys what it looks like. So yeah, as you guys can see here, just within 2 seasons really, we've managed to build a staff that literally only has 3 C-rated scouts left, and we will be keeping a vigilant eye out for any scouts that have even like B ratings in the European divisions over the next season here. So guys, after the year 3 draft, I forgot to record it before I did it, but here is a look at our prospect pool now. So we managed to get Colum, Stapleton, Gregoire, Duncan, Stevens, Wright, Trevelyan, and Kiiskanen. I think that was it for that year. So as you can see by all of those players down to I guess Wright would be the bottom one. Very good potential for the most part. We took a swing on Kiiskanen in the 6th round. He didn't turn out. But besides that, everybody else has serviceable NHL potential for the most part. Players like Gregoire, obviously being that low rated, are less likely to make the league. But the next video I am going to do is a tutorial on how to grow players from these super low ratings of 49 overall, how to boost them to get them actually growing so that they develop and end up in your NHL roster at some point. That will be the next video coming out. But that is where we're going to wrap this tutorial up. Obviously, you guys will see tons of examples here on this end screen of just how many different good players you can draft and develop over the seasons if you use this method effectively. I mean, as the Edmonton Oilers, who are a team that don't have a lot of draft capital, don't have a lot of top prospects, we managed to get, what, 4 medium elites, at least 8 low elites, a couple top 6 forwards, a couple top 4 and top 9 defense and then wingers. And then, of course, we have unsigned goalies too. So as a team that doesn't have a lot of draft capital, we turned the Edmonton Oilers into a top-end prospect pool in the NHL. So make sure to use this method to your advantage. It will make your franchise mode so much easier by actually having a legitimate prospect pipeline. But if you guys want to see that next video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, hit notifications. And if the prospect growth tutorial is out by the time you're watching this video, it will be on screen now. If you want to watch any of my other tutorials, make sure to click on the playlist on screen now. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Etanyos signing out, and until next time.